by Fiona Ferguson, a man convicted of involvement in the horrendous, aggravated burglary, assault and robbery of an 81-year-old farmer in rural North Dublin, has been jailed for 12 years. Adam Marlowe, 24, was convicted by a jury after his DNA profile was found on blue latex material located in the home of the elderly farmer who was beaten in his bedroom by 3 people wearing balaclavas. The material was described as the fingertip of a latex glove. Marlowe of Walkinstown Drive, Walkinstown, Dublin, had pleaded not guilty to aggravated burglary, robbery of €50 and assaulting Malachi Turley, causing him harm at his home in rural North Dublin, on July 29, 2016. After a 4-day trial at Dublin Circuit Criminal Court, a jury returned guilty verdicts on all 3 counts following less than 1 hour's deliberation. The court heard today that Marlowe maintains his innocence. Marlowe, who has 79 previous convictions, was on bail for 2 district court offences at the time of the burglary and was also serving the suspended portion of a sentence imposed for violent disorder. His previous offences include theft, possession of knives, criminal damage, dangerous driving, use of a mobile phone in prison, as well as drugs, road traffic and public order offences. Mr. Turley outlined in a victim impact statement read to the court that he suffered bruising to his legs, torso and arms and a deep cut to his hand which required 5 stitches. He said he had been traumatized for some months after the events and had increased security measures at his home. He said his confidence and independence had been impacted and described how it was hard to get back to the way things were. He said he was more paranoid now and wary of visitors and callers. "I was very lucky in life that everyone I met were good people until I met these 3 boys," he said. Mr. Turley's statement to Gardaí was read into evidence during the trial pursuant to Section 21 of the Criminal Justice Act 1984, and he did not have to give evidence from the witness box. Judge Melanie Greeley said the case had been contested on a very narrow basis, but the jury were satisfied that Marlowe was one of the men involved and he was ultimately convicted on the basis of DNA evidence. She said Mr. Turley had been living a solitary existence in an isolated cottage, faring well and attending to all his needs. She said his victim impact statement showed remarkable stoicism. She noted he said it would be hard to get his life back to the way it was, and she commented that it might be nearly impossible for someone of his age to regain a sense of safety in their own home. She said the aggravating aspects in these horrendous offenses were that they were premeditated and pre-planned crimes against an 81-year-old man who was isolated, vulnerable and defenseless. Judge Greeley noted the men had been armed with weapons of varying degrees with which Mr. Turley had been struck and threatened to the point of losing consciousness. She gave Marlowe credit for the fact that he was a young man who had a challenging upbringing marked by violence and drug abuse with very little in the way of positive role models. She noted he was now in a stable relationship and had a 2-year-old child. She said his previous offending appeared to be related in some measure to his drug addiction. Judge Greeley said the aggravated burglary merited a headline sentence of 15 years, but taking into account the mitigating factors, she reduced this to 12 years imprisonment.